And this is the beginning of the end of apartheid, of Kleinfontein. It even signals the beginning and the end of GNU here in South Africa.
En die hartseerste, vanoggend het hier gestaan, ons God, ons volk en ons eie. Dit is alles afgebreek en vertrap.
My guest is Danny de Beer. I hope I say it right. Danny, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know how you feel today. It was a hard and a tough day yesterday. Just for context, I received a invitation to join the WhatsApp emergency group, Kleinfontein group yesterday. So I was able to follow the events from yesterday morning right throughout the day. I watched this all unfolding, and I must confess it was both painful, shameful, and plain ridiculous. But you described to me what happened yesterday.
Indeed, it was not only a tough day, it was a tough week.
Mm-hmm.
We had preparations to make in the event. It could have turned out, I think, far worse, but the feeling last night after the protesters left Kleinfontein was one of relief that it didn't get out of hand. It could have. I think this was probably one of the most tense experiences I have had in my life.
Well,
And I include the 1994 era, where there were protests all over the country, where the Afrikaner was still strong and still in a position to make decisions. And since then, we've been reduced to a minority. We have to purchase land. We have to try and preserve our culture in a geographical area, and then to be attacked verbally, visually, with blaring music that is not our music, right at our front gates, by, I would describe the EFF as a gang of individuals with malicious intent. They came to break, they came to destroy, they came to intimidate, they came to humiliate. And the emotions during the day of the people in Kleinfontein, the community, it was tangible. It was in the air. There was an atmosphere of what now? Let's hope the situation can be contained. And the very visual and large presence of the police indicated that also the authorities took this very seriously, because this was the first time that an absolute radical party with no regard for human life, I mean, they sing kill the boer, kill the farmer, they sang it at our gates to insult, to inflict pain. They came face to face with a community that has nowhere to run. Those people that have wanted to immigrate have done so. Those that wanted to leave for the Western Cape have done so. Those that have nowhere else to go and that love their home, Kleinfontein, they are here. They were here. And with no intention to be trampled upon, I think it was clear to everybody that there was a standoff right there and then. And if that standoff went wrong, we could have had violence. We could have had the start of something terrible. And prayers afterwards, that it didn't go that way. I think that pulled us through.
Tell me about the people. Who are the people that were the night before had gone to bed already imagining, thinking about what was lying ahead of them? Tell me about those people. Tell me about particularly, and that's where my heart goes out, because somewhere I read that the community has got quite a lot of older people as well, pensioners as well. So tell me about the old granny. Tell me about the mother. Tell me about the child. Tell me about the vulnerable who literally days beforehand sit and anticipate this thing that's building up and then up to the moment when it explodes.
You're quite right. Kleinfontein was founded in 89. That was when the first property was bought. Then the pioneers of Kleinfontein were in their 50s, pretty much approaching retirement age. So those pioneers are now in their 80s. They now have children and grandchildren, and a lot of them have, based on the phenomenal growth that we had in the 90s, moved to Kleinfontein. And you'll find that in Kleinfontein, there are very large families. Grandmother is here, father and mother is here, the kids are here, and the kids are almost at that age where they will have kids again, 3 generations or even more. So the effect of the naughty children of South African politics, the violent gang type of organization that the EFF is, and demonstrates so repeatedly. Wherever they go, they leave a path of destruction. And kids, grandmothers, fathers, they're fully aware of who and what the EFF is. We had repeated calls of dialogue in the week before. There is also a video circulating where, with the CEO of Kleinfontein, the opportunity was given to the EFF to choose dialogue. They chose not to do so. That was the first indication that they intended to come to Kleinfontein regardless, to intimidate, to instill fear. And partially they succeeded. There were some mothers saying, we don't know what will happen. Our kids will leave Kleinfontein Thursday evening. They will only return when we know what happened with the EFF. The large elderly contingent of Kleinfontein, part of Kleinfontein, they had nowhere to go. There are today a large part in, let's say, the old age part of Kleinfontein, of grandmothers, perhaps with kids in New Zealand and Australia. They have nobody else here. They do not have vehicles. They can't drive. They're in their late 80s. They had nowhere to go. And the fear was very, very real. After the event, after the destruction, there was a call to clean up. It was emotional, at least, to see old ladies, old womies and tannies with their kids, their grandchildren, coming with black bags and clearing up after this gang of absolute bullies. You're quite right. The effect that the EFF had on the community was one of a tense, I think I can borrow a word from another language, angst, that they instilled, because that is what they do. Yeah. They have a choir in front, emotionally charging a crowd, and the crowd, like in other events, part of them were intoxicated. A part of the crowd was definitely using drugs. We could see at the dances, while the music was blaring at our front entrance, that some of the marchers didn't even know why they were there. They were already on some sort of a substance. And we know that in South Africa, there's a large youthful population that makes regular use of drugs like methamphetamines, nyope specifically, that make them violent, that make them aggressive. And I was there. I was there 50 meters away from the gate. Any closer, and I would get calls and challenges from the crowd. And you could see they were aggressive. They were absolutely looking for a fight. Terwyl die EFF van plan is om te marseer op Kleinfontein vandag, gaan dinge aan soos normaal. Infrastruktuur word gelê. In hierdie geval is dit 'n padkruising wat 'n elektriese kabel moet kry. Daarvoor word daar 'n hals gebruik.
Yeah. Danny, let me ask you this. During and before, what did you do, or how did you prepare for this? How did you try to prepare the people of Kleinfontein for this really nasty event? And then when they at the gate and singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer" and chanting and saying things like "Voetsak, Kleinfontein," and describe to me, what were the people of Kleinfontein doing? Did they retreat to their homes, close the doors? Give me an idea of what do I see in front of me?
There was fear, but there was also confidence. The Kleinfontein community came together in an incredible way. The entire week there were preparations of the kids prepared gifts for the old age home. There was a very well worked out security plan with both the community members themselves, our internal security, our young men, our strong men, our fighting men. And there was also a hand extended to other security, let's say, organizations in the vicinity. Typically, the neighborhood watch, the buurtwag, and they were fully prepared. And that gave confidence to the community in the event that something would go wrong. But that doesn't chase away and immediately eradicate fear.
Yeah.
There were good preparations, but you never know when it goes out of hand. And there was also this absolutely looming fact that if something goes wrong, if an irresponsible person fires a single shot, or if one of the protesters breached the gates, climbed over the fence, threw a brick, that there would be an inevitable confrontation. And that confrontation would not be limited to the day. If something had gone wrong yesterday, South Africa today would be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
It would have eradicated whatever there was left of the process of reconciliation, because the EFF came with an agenda of racism. They present and they dish out hatred. They are led by people that are completely irresponsible. Their leader pleads poverty, drives a luxury car, has R1 million watch on his arm. Puppets like one of their presenters, Carl Nias, he jumps ship from political party to political party. We knew we had a situation which was a powder keg, and one irresponsible step from whomever could make that keg explode, and that would have had repercussions for the entire South Africa. It would have set us back 20 years, and that was on everybody's mind. So regardless of all the preparations, the security cameras we had around the gents that offered their assistance, the well worked out plan, even as far as cordoning off a risky area, that is there, but the fear remains.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, how did the police handle the situation?
10:21 en die eerste polisievoertuie daag op Kleinfontein vir die verwagte EFF optog. Nog geen EFF is sigbaar nie. Die SAP is hier in groot getalle. Die owerhede doen hulle werk. Dit is goed.
I think exceptionally well, which was also an indication of how tense the situation was. And if it had gone wrong, what the repercussions would have been. They were there with 2 water cannons, motorized, of course, at least 2 Nyalas, about 15 police vehicles, 100 men in total. They had shields ready. There was a helicopter above, not from the police, from another security firm. There were drones. The march was very well studied from Alzu, which was about 3 kilometers away. So I think from a security point of view, I have to commend the South African police. I think that gave some assurance to the community. They took pole position, but it was made very clear to them that outside of the gate is their jurisdiction. And outside of the gate has nothing to do with the Kleinfontein community. Because there was also a risk. We had calls from supporters saying we are ready to help. And yes, in moment of need, you will take in almost anybody to help you. But if that situation is not completely controlled with almost military precision,
Yeah.
you could get somebody just overstepping a boundary and taking the situation into account. It would have been devastating.
Yeah.
But the police, exceptionally well.
I don't want to over dramatize it, but how long did all of this last? And try to take me into the head of the elderly lady who is sitting in her house or peeping through the window in fear. Yeah.
For the elderly lady in Wagabiki, one of the old age areas in Kleinfontein, they were glued to the communication sent regularly with updates. However, the situation at the front gate was such that it was risky for anybody from the community to approach the gate.
Yeah.
Myself got as close as 25 meters to the front gate, where I had EFF members shouting and screaming at me, calling me towards the gate, rattling at the fence. At the same time, we had the SAPS command regularly coming inside and then talking with the leadership about possible scenarios, what should be done, what shouldn't be done. Strangely enough, the EFF came to deliver a memorandum, and they said so publicly in a media statement to Tshwane, but they decided to march to Kleinfontein, where they handed a memorandum to Tshwane. So the whole question of the motive behind the march was even more threatening.
You've referred to Karel Niehaus. I know Karel Niehaus. Karel Niehaus was our ambassador here in The Hague, so I've been in contact with him throughout the years. Before I'd like you to comment on what Karel Niehaus said, let's take a listen to what he said yesterday.
Weg! Weg met apartheid! Weg! Voetzet Kleinfontein! Voetzet! Voetzet Kleinfontein! Voetzet! Fighters, I've been asked to say a few words. I've got a short and sharp message for the racists of Kleinfontein. When we marched here, I saw here at the gate, they say, ons God, ons nasie, ons eie. We want to say to them, you cannot claim God as your own.
Donnie, how do you react to calm the house?
Today he's in the EFF. Tomorrow possibly he joins the DA. I don't know whether one can take Carl seriously. What one has to take seriously, though, is his capacity to mobilize, to make a crowd angry, to make them aggressive, and then to use that crowd as a tool. So I don't think Carl is to be underestimated. But to me, he's a lost soul. He doesn't really know where to belong. He doesn't know to which political party to belong. He doesn't know to which culture to belong. So he's an opportunist politician. And a lot of what happened at Kleinfontein yesterday was exactly that. The EFF were outsmarted by the MK, who in a very professional manner did visit Kleinfontein prior to the EFF march. And I think that was also some of the motivation behind the EFF's copying of the MK visit. However, they chose a confrontational way instead of dialogue, and I would like to say civil dialogue.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you what I would like to ask Carl and the EFF is if we have a country in which I think 40% of our young people are unemployed, I think something like 55% of our people are living under the poverty line, it would seem to me better to spend your energy and resources to actually focus on those issues than to go and pressurize a small community such as yourself. It just doesn't make sense to me that if you are confronted with such enormous problems in South Africa, why would you even bother about this tiny little community? Tell me about the community. How did you come into being? On what basis was the community created? How was the community created?
Very much out of the previous powder keg. And that was the late 80s, early 90s. The writing was on the wall. Everything is about to change in South Africa. We're on the brink of civil war. General Constant Viljoen and his men, they are ready. What will happen tomorrow? What will happen in the next few days? Is South Africa going to erupt in a civil war? It's against that backdrop that the idea of Kleinfontein and both Orania originated. In the 80s, there were several organizations, the Afrikaner Volkswag, the Boerevryheidsbeweging, all organizations very well aware that the Afrikaner is basically facing extinction. The move to democracy, even though it was promised, F.W. de Klerk promised a rainbow, a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but realistically speaking, everybody knew that was not going to happen. Yes, some people were duped into believing that a unitary state is the solution and everybody will just relinquish their culture and their traditions and live happily ever after. And it's from there that South Africa was investigated by land surveyors, by politicians, by ideologists on the Afrikaner side to say, what now? South Africa faces a new dawn. What happens to the Afrikaner? Two trains of thought. The one was to the Northern Cape, which of course today is Orania, and the other one was the old Transvaal republics, pretty much where Kleinfontein is now. And both these communities grew. Kleinfontein not as much as Orania, for a number of reasons. But today, we're about a community of 1,500 people with about 900 hectares. We have sympathetic neighbors. When the opportunity arises, And when there are funds available, we do try and acquire properties next to Kleinfontein, because our 900 hectares is almost like a corridor to the east of Pretoria. And it has a very stabilizing effect in the immediate vicinity, which is still quite very much farmland. On a daily basis, you see tractors driving past, people with dairy farms, with producing hay, planting soya. It's still very much farmland with this Afrikaner community right in the center. We have a very large perimeter, 11 kilometers from north to south. So we span a substantial geographical area. 900 hectares does not compare to Orania, but then again, the dynamics of Kleinfontein is very much different. We have professional doctors, engineers living in Kleinfontein, but working outside. In the surrounding areas, there are several hospitals. If you're a brain surgeon and you're an Afrikaner, you identify with the community, you move into Kleinfontein, and you still have that opportunity to ply your trade close by, which makes us very different from Orania. Where we are very similar, though, is that we are self-sustaining, self-sufficient. We have our own sewage system. We have our own electricity distribution. We buy bulk from Eskom, but we also have a solar plant. We have a fountain that has produced water for hundreds of years, according to archives. We have boreholes. We supply every single drop of water to the community ourselves. We do our roads ourselves. We do the management of the community ourselves. Several journalists have compared us to a very minute country. And should you just focus on it and enlarge it, it could typically be a small European country with its own culture, also its own rules.
Yeah.
We respect Day of the Vow as an example. It is a public holiday for another reason in South Africa. For us, it remains Day of the Vow. On the 31st of May, we will celebrate the Day of the Republic, something that South Africa does not do. So it's vastly different. It's two different worlds. And I heard you say that you watched some of the video footage, and it was like that yesterday. There were members of our civil team preparing to lay a high voltage cable underground, working with jackhammers and compactors. And the background was this violent, aggressive African music.
The most bizarre contrast I have ever seen in my life. The men with the jackhammers working in the street, and the crazy crowds screaming at the fences. Yeah,
absolutely surreal. Yeah. Surreal and terrifying that it has come this far. That 30 years on, or since the apparent dawn of democracy, it appears as if South Africa has not progressed. Tolerance, racial tolerance, cultural tolerance, I think is almost approaching zero. The victory speeches given by Mandela, the promises, the beautiful rainbow, none of that was visible yesterday.
Danny, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the people of Kleinfontein that shared and included me on that WhatsApp group of yours, your emergency group yesterday, that allowed me to really feel part of what was happening yesterday in Kleinfontein. One of the last videos that was published was by one of your colleagues. I noted his name down, a chap called Genes, I think is his surname, if I've got it correct, Rian Genes. Genis. I found it deeply touching. I want to share this with the viewers, how the day yesterday was concluded with a call to people to come and clean the mess that was left behind. Perhaps before I share this video with our viewers, share with me the feelings, your feelings, and the feelings of the people yesterday as the EFF disappeared back over the hill, gone, left your area, and as your folk went out there with their big black plastic bags to go and clean up the mess. What went through your mind? What do you imagine went through the minds of those folks?
Relief, emotional relief. There were people, especially of the older generation, that could not hold back the tears. Because as Afrikaners, as Kleinfontainers, they've been through so much. And to see the community attacked, to see the destruction, to see the sign, our God, being violently ripped off the entrance was deeply disturbing. Yes, there were moments of anger, moments of fear, the absolute relief when they left, the absolute mess that they left. But it was a healing moment for the community. It's very often that we have community events, baking pancakes, we see each other at church, there's some sports, a little bit of rugby, a little bit of this. But that's a section of the community. Yesterday afternoon when the EFF finally left, everybody, whether you had a walker with you, whether you were on crutches, or whether you were carried with by your mother, they were there. They were out in numbers. After a while, the people started joking as the relief spilled over the community that we cleaned up faster than they could mess. We are repairing faster than they could break.
Yeah.
It was a very, very emotional moment. It was emotional for me. There's a picture also on social media of a gentleman. He came to the CEO and he hugged him, tearful, just saying he's so glad that it's over.
Yeah.
I think it should not be underestimated that the community very much felt under threat, but not that we triumphed. I think there was discipline. The situation was contained. We were well prepared. But from the community, the outpouring of thanks, of gratitude, the prayers being sent today on WhatsApp groups, tremendous.
Yeah, I must say I was quite touched by the images, and I think you used the right word as well, a sense of the resilience of the people. And there's something quite touching about to see this little film clip. Danny de Beer, thank you very much. You're the spokesperson of Kleinfontein. I hope we're going to meet again in the future. Thanks so much, and thank you for sharing yesterday with me, or gave me the space to share with you the experience of Kleinfontein. Let's take a look at this beautiful, for me, touching little film about the people of Kleinfontein cleaning up after the mess. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Die Kleinfontein gemeenskap na die EFF optog met swart sakke in die hand. En kyk waarmee is hulle besig.